Hello all and welcome to this tutorial video. I am Ashley Squires, the Director of the Writing Center here at Avila University, and today I'm going to show you how to cite a source in your text using MLA format. So let's quickly review the reasons why it's important to cite your sources. First of all, citing sources gives people credit for their original ideas and work. When you cite a source, you're acknowledging that the ideas and information came from somewhere else and are the intellectual property of their original author. Secondly, citing sources helps your reader understand where your information is coming from. If a reader is interested in following up on an example you provide or knowing more about where a statistic comes from, then showing your source allows them to verify it independently. So it's a courtesy to your reader. And finally, citing sources helps enhance your credibility as a writer. It shows that you've done your research and that you're responding to what other people have written about your topic. But what counts as a citation? So typically when we cite a source in an academic paper, we need to do three things. First of all, we need to use quotation marks whenever we're quoting from another source directly. That helps us distinguish between our words and words we got from somewhere else. Secondly, we need to provide an in-text or sometimes called a parenthetical citation anytime we quote, paraphrase, or discuss a source in our writing. Typically looks like this in MLA. And we need to provide a complete list of works cited at the end of the paper. So this video is going to cover item number 2, and we'll cover the basics of works cited lists in a separate video. So one thing you should know before we dive into the subject here is that there are actually dozens, even hundreds of different citation systems out there. All of these citation standards are provided by different publishers and academic organizations. So the Chicago University Press publishes the Chicago Manual of Style. The Modern Languages Association publishes the MLA Handbook. The American Psychological Association is responsible for the APA Handbook. So which citation system professionals use generally depends on where they're publishing, but certain formats tend to dominate within certain disciplines. So Chicago and MLA are commonly used in the humanities, which is why you'll see MLA come up a lot in, say, English classes. APA, on the other hand, has become sort of the format of choice in the social sciences. So if you're a psychology major or a sociology major or an economics major, you may have to use APA much more frequently than MLA. MLA is actually generally the easiest citation format to master, which is why it's often taught in high schools. But if you're new to using academic citation methods, then this may be a good one for you to start with. It requires a little bit less information than APA, and the formatting requirements are a little bit more consistent and easier to remember. So as I said, an in-text or a parenthetical citation needs to be provided anytime you quote, paraphrase, or discuss a source in your text. In MLA, all you need in order to do this is the last name of the author and the page number that the quote or the piece of information comes from, though there's sometimes some exceptions to this, and I'll talk about those in a moment. So if you take a look at this very standard MLA citation, you'll notice that the parenthetical citation always comes at the end of the sentence where the quotation or the paraphrase occurs. And again, we have author's last name and we have a page number. You should notice that there is no punctuation separating the name and the page number, just a single space, no need for a comma or anything like that. Also, you should notice that the parenthetical citation is considered part of the sentence. So it goes inside the final period. Okay, if you stick it outside, it looks like it's actually part of the next sentence. We want to keep it part of the same sentence that contains the quote, so inside the period. So this is the basic in-text citation form that you'll use in MLA. And honestly, if you do this every single time you cite sources in your paper, you will mostly have gotten it right. But there are a couple of variations that you should just be aware of and that you may need to put into practice to make sure that you're doing everything okay for your paper. So first of all, if you happen to mention the name of the author in your text using something called an attributive tag, which is just a fancy word for kind of an introduction to a quote. In this case, the attributive tag is J. Allison Describes. We have a whole handout on attributive tags available on the Writing Center website, and I will also provide a link to that in the description on YouTube. So if you mention the name of the author in your text, it's just obvious who you're talking about. And so you don't need to repeat the author's name in the parentheses. Again, if you do it, it's doubtful that your teacher will mark it wrong, but you can just omit it. It would be redundant information. It's not needed. So just a page number in parentheses is all that you need there. Second variation. If it so happens that you are citing multiple works by the same author in your essay, this comes up sometimes, say, in a literature class where you have 3 different George Eliot novels, perhaps, that you are writing about for your final paper. And so your reader could easily get confused about which text you're referring to if it's just always Eliot page number, etc. So what you do in this case is you provide a short form of the title, typically just like a word or a short phrase, just enough so that the reader will recognize it when they go to look it up in your works cited page. Generally, kind of the standard is like the first major word, so not a, an, or the first major word of the title is generally enough. Sometimes you might need to include 2 or 3 words. Finally, if you are citing a work that doesn't have page numbers, and this tends to be the case a lot with online sources. If you're citing from a web page or a news article that's on a web page, generally you don't have page numbers. So my recommendation is to try finding another separator that would assist your reader in tracking down the reference if they wanted to. So something like a paragraph number or a section number. Since online articles tend to be pretty short, it generally isn't a problem to like count paragraphs. If there's just 10 paragraphs, then showing that it's in paragraph 4 can be a help to your reader. Your instructor could potentially, though, have different expectations around this sort of thing. So if you're unsure, I would just ask. But in general, this is what you should do. Just find a different separator, a section number, a paragraph number, something like that, in order to help your reader track down where a quote or a reference comes from. Okay, so that's really it. Hopefully this guide should help you be able to format almost any in-text citation in MLA. We've actually created a quick reference sheet for you, which you can access, again, in this description if you're watching on YouTube or by going directly to our website, avila.edu/writing center. And this quick reference sheet contains all of the most common cases you'll encounter. You can print it out and keep it in a binder, tape it to your wall, have it open on your computer desktop, whatever helps as you're writing your paper. Sometimes, though, you'll encounter those less common cases. And it's important to just know that you can Google for these anytime that they arise. No one expects you to just memorize everything having to do with MLA citation. Even people who write an MLA style professionally have to look a lot of stuff up, so there's no shame in doing so. And if you ever get confused or want someone to answer your questions about all of this, feel free to come by the Writing Center or to make an appointment with us on Navigate, and we will do our best to help. Thank you very much.